Up, guys? So I just finished watching 11 episodes of Sakamoto Days, and I gotta say, it was a fun time. But sometimes I felt like it was a little stale, and I did make the huge mistake of comparing Sakamoto Days with John Wick. Well, they do have some similarities between one and the other, like how Sakamoto Days, he's a retired assassin, and he was the best of the best of the best within his organization. Same with John Wick, he was the best of the best within his organization, and they actually had some similar battles, like Sakamoto using a mechanical pencil, and John Wick having a story about him using just the pencil to just kill all his enemies, like many enemies. And so there is that element, and they both retired, but within Sakamoto Days, Sakamoto himself retired and had his own family. He had his wife and a daughter, and honestly, John Wick could have had the same thing. John Wick retired and he had a wife, and he could have had a family too, but apparently his wife died from sickness, while in Sakamoto Days his wife is still alive, and of course he had a kid, and they're pretty much living happily within Sakamoto and his store. But within John Wick, he had a wife that died, and then when she died, he sent over John Wick a doge, or a dog, if you will. Don't know what breed it was, but he got a doge. But then, as you guys know, if you guys haven't watched the movie John Wick, he goes to the gas station, he gets bullied, and obviously these guys don't know who he is, and they kill his doge. And so now John Wick goes back into the business of becoming an assassin, just to get revenge for his doge. Man's best friend, right? Well, he goes back to get revenge for his doge, while in Sakamoto Days he doesn't do any of that. He's actually fighting off assassins that want to assassinate him just because he left. So apparently, in Sakamoto Days, Sakamoto didn't pull out the right way, if you know what I'm saying. Pause. That he definitely didn't pull out. Oh shit. Oh man, bro couldn't pull out of that, man. Holy. Oh man, it was just too good, man. It was just too good. Well, anyways, I'm getting distracted. My mind is going down that rabbit hole, guys. Oh, stop. You know what was going on, man. You know what was going on. And that's why John Wick is pissed. Right? That's why John Wick is pissed. He lost his boo and his doge. Well, anyways, so I made that huge mistake because John Wick and Sakamoto Days, well, they do have one particular thing between them. Like the retirement thing. They are not really much alike, and it's I'm not trying to dog on the anime, but it doesn't get close to how amazing the action was within John Wick. So I should have just not based it off John Wick, because John Wick has its own scale and what it was actually trying to do, while Sakamoto Days, I think it was just more wholesome, more wholehearted, felt kind of like a slice of life, a little bit more slow paced. And the fights, while they were amazing, the tactics that were used, like Shin's mind reading, so yeah, then that's the other thing too, guys. Sakamoto Days had so many great characters, like I said, Shin and his telepathy or mind reading, and then we had the girl Lu, this guy right here. Everyone played a part. Everyone was just every character was just so well done. And it was just so fun seeing every single character and seeing some of their background. While in John Wick, we really just see him going on a vengeful path, and it was just so cool seeing him going through hundreds of men doing crazy shit. While there is crazy battles within Sakamoto Days, like in some of the episodes, they were on a roller coaster. And even here now, like there's like they're in a casino. You don't see this a lot in John Wick. Everything's just more low key in Sakamoto Days. They finish. They go out, fend off some assassins, come back to their storefront, and they recruit some people. So people join. As you can see here, all these other guys were either in the mafias or in the same association with an assassination organization. So they all come together. They become pals, or to become buddies. Sakamoto, it's like one giant happy family. While I haven't seen the last movie of John Wick, I know from the first 3 or 4 episodes, the bro is just on a vengeful path. And he's just on a vengeful path. We just see him going struggle after struggle after struggle, fight after fight after fight. He's fighting the top of the tops. While in Sakamoto Days, it's just a little bit more slower. You know, they have a little bit more time, you know, to chill out episodes. And so, yeah, I made a huge mistake, guys, because I was expecting that level of intensity. But this is Hollywood, guys. You know, they have a huge production. You know, they spend millions upon millions of dollars on the production, on the special effects. And even John Wick himself is, you know, the actor. Keanu Reeves, you know, he's just such a phenomenal actor. He has certain skills. You know, he's you know, he's really good with the gun. So he was able to show it in real time, you know, his skills, and it's just so impressive. While on Sakamoto Days, while I did compare it a little bit, it's still just an anime, and its budget was probably really within a certain amount extent, and they can't really go above and beyond with how epic the fights could be. But nonetheless, the fights were still fun. But as you can see here, even within this episode, you know, it's still a little slow. There's a lot more dialogue. You know, they're still showing new characters. You know, so I really think that you should watch Sakamoto Days. If you really love John Wick, that's great. But Sakamoto Days, you shouldn't really put it in a high pedestal like John Wick. You know, otherwise you're gonna be really disappointed, and you're gonna really miss the whole point of the anime. You know, the whole point of the anime is that Sakamoto is just trying to keep his family safe while keeping it wholesome and recruiting everybody else, and, you know, just fighting off the organization. And he probably had this all planned out, or if he didn't, he's just doing such an ingenious job recruiting more assassins to be on his side to protect his family, because he knows he really can't do everything alone, especially if there's so many organizations out there that are assassin based. And not to mention, he's gotten a little bit out of shape. He's gotten a little bit more chubby, as you guys can see. You know, he's not the man he used to be. Of course, his skills don't just get Thanos snapped like that out of nowhere, but he knows that he needs all these allies, and he's recruiting them little by little. And now he has to fight off, you know, it was pretty hype, you know, these new characters, these new assassins. You know, they're just plain serial killers. They're not even assassins. So, you know, they got goals, they got reasons for doing what they do in order. And honestly, bro, this was probably better for the world. That and even within John Wick, you know, John Wick was killing all the greatest assassins, and the same thing with Sakamoto Days. You know, he's killing all the greatest assassins, and thus creating a better world for everyone else, keeping everybody else safer. So it's just so funny how there's so much we could compare within each series, but we really can't, or you're doing yourself a disservice. You know, if anything, the best thing to do is just consider Sakamoto Days like an alternate universe, a more laid back and chill at the moment, because shit looks like is about to ramp up. You know, it's really gonna ramp up. So in conclusion, guys, I really believe if you're gonna enjoy Sakamoto Days, don't compare it too much, but see it as an alternate universe. And as well, if I could have a watch order, it would be Sakamoto Days first and then John Wick. You know, because otherwise you're gonna set the bar way too high with John Wick if you watch it first and then watch Sakamoto Days like me. You know, I made that mistake. Anyways, I still enjoyed Sakamoto Days. You know, it was very fun, and I love the characters. I really do love the characters. The characters is what makes Sakamoto Days shine. While, you know, and John Wick, it was just all about Keanu Reeves, John Wick, and his vengeance. So, you know, they all have different narratives and all this stuff, and it's just not a good idea to compare it, but rather just enjoy what each one is trying to do. And yeah, so overall, I gave this a good 7 out of 10 because they only gave us 11 episodes, guys. You know what I'm saying? It's like really awkward to give us 11 episodes. Maybe they're catching up too much to the main source. I believe it's the manga. Yeah, I think they're catching up or something. Something's going on that I really don't know, guys, which is really awkward to me just to have 11 episodes, you know, in their first season. Now, you'd expect 12, you know, one less episode, you know, big whoop. But at the same time, bro, it's like, come on. They really didn't want to feed us good. But anyways, that is all, guys. 7 out of 10. Really well made story, good characters, and you know, it's a good feel. It's a really good feel anime, guys. That is all. Peace.